guys, what's up and welcome back to my channel. So today's video is a fun one. I've been super excited to do this with you all. So today we're going to be going through all of my eyeshadow palettes, and in each of my bigger palettes that I'm going to share with you all today, I'm going to be choosing the top shade in each palette that is my favorite. So recently I've noticed that I've kind of moved away from larger palettes, and when I say larger palettes I mean ones that are like 10 plus shades. I feel like my style right now is more geared towards like quads and like 6-pan eyeshadow palettes or 9-pan eyeshadow palettes at the most. So I don't really get much use out of my bigger palettes anymore just because it's not really what I'm looking for. Smaller palettes are easier to travel with. It's easier to work with on a daily basis. You don't have to be sorting through a bunch of eyeshadows and deciding what you're going to be putting on your eyes. So that's just my personal preference right now. Obviously, I still love all of the larger palettes that I have and I still use them from time to time, but I just kind of been getting more into smaller palettes right now, so I figured it would be fun to go through all of my bigger palettes with you all and just see what shades I'm actually using and what shades I'm really liking out of all of them. So I can't wait to get started. Before we do though, I would love it if you would subscribe to my channel. I upload videos twice a week, Tuesdays and Sundays, so I'd love to have you back here. And now let's jump into this video. Alright, so I'm going to start with the largest palette that I own, which is the So Jaded palette from Colourpop and Kathleen Lights. I really do enjoy this palette. I got it this past fall and it just is so pretty. Like, these shades are gorgeous. I really do like the colors in this palette and I like the variety that it gives you. I don't really use the more colorful shades that often. I'm not the biggest colored eyeshadow fan on like an everyday basis. Here and there I will do some fun colorful looks whenever I'm wearing an outfit that kind of suits that, but I'm not like using purple eyeshadow every single day, even though I think it looks super cool and it's really fun to work with. So let's see, which one is my favorite out of this 30-pan palette? Oh, this is so hard because there are two that I'm kind of like in between. I'm going to try to pick my top shade. So I think my number one eyeshadow in this palette is this one here. This is the shade You're a Gem, and it is just this really pretty like corally pink color. This is definitely like this, and this row is definitely my most used out of this palette just because it is like my style right now. I really like the blush pinks and mauves and coral tones, so it's definitely where my taste is at right now. So my top one in this palette would have to be You're a Gem here. The other one that I was in between was this diamond shade here. This is Colourpop's Super Shock shadow, and I really like this formula, especially as a topper, but I decided to go with the colored one because I feel like it's not really fair to just pick the topper that's like the one unique one in the palette. So You're a Gem, my favorite out of the Colourpop So Jaded palette. Alright, next up we're going to throw it back to a super old palette. This is the Urban Decay Naked Smoky palette. I have not used this in a hot minute. I honestly thought about getting rid of it, but then I decided to keep it just because it is so nostalgic. It's one of like the first larger eyeshadow palettes that I own. Naked palettes were like my go-to whenever I first started getting into makeup, so that's why I hang on to this one. But I don't really use this that much anymore just because I'm not really into these sort of cool tones and the grays and all of that. So let's see, I don't even know what I can pick out of this one. So I think I'm gonna have to go with this shade Slanted here. It is just this beautiful like a bluish toned gray shimmer, and it's so unique. So that is my favorite out of the Naked Smoky palette. I forgot what it was for a second. I was going to do all of the naked ones now, but I think I'm going to intersperse them throughout the other ones so it's not just like all one brand at one time. So the next one I have is the Beauty Bakery Proof is in the Pudding palette. I actually got this in a FabFitFun box. I haven't really used it too much, but the color story is definitely right up my alley. I love all of these warm tones, especially for the fall. Let's see. Out of the few times that I have used this palette, I think I have to say my favorite is this shade here, Mango Pudding. This is like one of my all-time favorite shades, not only to wear on my eyes, but also to wear clothing-wise as well. It's just so gorgeous. I love this kind of like orangey tone, and it looks so pretty for the fall time. This is it swatched there on my hand a little bit. These shadows are so incredibly soft and buttery, and this one's definitely my favorite out of the palette, and it is such a unique shade too. A lot of palettes don't include kind of like orangey, mustardy yellow oranges like this, just because it's kind of, I feel like, a harder color to master. But this one is definitely very pigmented, and you can really see it on your eyes, and it goes great paired with like brown tones as well, so that's why I really like this one. All right, we're gonna throw it back with another Naked palette next. So this is the Naked 3 from Urban Decay. This was like this might have been my first ever like high-end eyeshadow palette. I adored this back in the day. Naked 3 is like all pretty pinks and soft colors, which is why I really enjoyed it. I haven't used this palette in a very long time, but I know back in the day my favorite shade was Mugshot, and honestly that is kind of the one that stands out the most to me right now. So it is this really pretty like deeper silver shimmer. Let me see if I can swatch it for you guys. Wow, I haven't touched one of these shades in so long. I don't even know what it's gonna feel like, but this is the shade. Wow, it still looks so pretty. It's just like a beautiful shimmer to wear on your lids. I used to be really into these sort of darker shimmers like this one. There it is there, swatched. That just is such a pretty, like kind of more of a unique shimmer shade, and definitely one of my favorites. I think it goes so pretty with the pinks in this palette. So Mugshot is definitely, whoa, sorry, I blinded you there. So Mugshot is definitely my favorite out of the Naked 3. All right, next we're gonna move on to my Juvia's Place palette. This is the Saharan palette, and I don't use this one all too frequently either. I got this at Ulta. It was on a pretty good deal whenever I picked it up from their website. I think I ordered it maybe like a year or so ago, and it's just such a unique color story. I think it is so pretty. Out of this palette, my top shade is definitely this brown shimmer shade here, Senegal. It's so gorgeous. I'm a sucker for brown shimmers. I love anything warm toned. These two are definitely my top two in this palette. They look so pretty paired together as well, but there's just something about this shimmer that is so unique. Brown shimmers are always one of my go-tos. This is the shade there. It's just so gorgeous. It's like brown but has hints of gold too, so this is definitely my top one out of this palette. All right, so next we are moving on to one of my favorite palettes in my entire collection. This is the Modern Renaissance from Nastasia. I absolutely adore this palette. I haven't used it in a while, but when I first got this palette a few years ago, it was like the only palette I used for a good 5-6 months. It's just so pretty, so easy to work with, and the colors are amazing. The formula is amazing as well. There are a lot of shades in this palette that I do really enjoy. My top four, I would have to say, are this Raw Sienna shade here, Burnt Orange, Primavera, which is such a pretty shimmery gold, and then this Real Girl shade over here. It's just like a beautiful burnt orange. Now, oh gosh, I don't know which one I'm gonna choose. It's such a great palette to get like a neutral eyeshadow out, gosh, I messed that up horribly. It's such a great palette to get more of a neutral eye look out of, but you can also create some really fun looks with this as well. I'm gonna have to go with, though, the Raw Sienna shade. It is just this super pretty kind of mid-toned brown. This works great as an outer corner shade if you're doing like a lighter brown eye look, but it also works great as a transition shade if you're going for more of a deep brown eye look. It's just such a unique brown. I absolutely love my neutral colors, as you probably know, so I am obsessed with brown eyeshadow looks and neutral eyeshadow looks, so this brown is definitely my top shade in the Modern Renaissance palette because it's just so pretty. It looks so great all over the lid on its own too, so I can't get enough of it. Definitely my top one out of that. Next up, we're moving on to a Colourpop palette. This is the Yes Please palette from Colourpop. I really like the shades in this. It is right up my alley, nice warm orangey pinks and browns. There are a lot of shades in this palette that I like, but I find that the shimmers in this palette aren't my favorite. They're just kind of like a flat shimmer, if you know what I mean. They don't really pack any punch, so the mattes in this palette is definitely where it shines. My top shade in this palette is GNO, which is this really, really pretty kind of burnt orange, like rust colored shade. This is what it looks like here. It is this shade right there. I absolutely adore this. It's one of my favorite colors for the fall time, and I think that this looks so pretty with brown eye looks, or even if you just want to throw this in your crease and outer corner and a gold shimmer in the center. It's just such a pretty color and definitely my favorite out of the Colourpop Yes Please palette. Alright, next up we're moving on to my last Naked palette, which is the Naked Heat. I got this palette, this is like my newest Urban Decay palette that I have. I haven't bought any of their newer ones like the Naked Honey palette, or not that it's naked, but like the Born to Run palette from Urban Decay. I didn't purchase that either. So this is my newest Urban Decay palette, and I have to say when I open this up, this is definitely a really, really pretty palette. A lot of these shades are shades that I would naturally pick out of another palette if they were like interspersed into different either like neutral or colorful eyeshadow palettes. But when I open this up, my eyes go to one shade in particular, and that is this one right here, this Cayenne shade. It's just like the perfect mesh between a rust and a brown. You'll see once I swatch it what I'm talking about. So here it is right there. Like, it's just such a gorgeous shade. These shadows are a little bit powdery, which I don't love. It's why I don't really use this palette all that often, but if I had to pick one shade out of the Naked Heat palette, it would definitely be this Cayenne shade, because it's like a brown and a burnt orange had a baby, which those are two of my favorite colors anyway, so if you mesh them together, you know I'm gonna love them. Next we're gonna chat about some Morphe. So this is the Morphe 9T palette. My sister actually got me this for Christmas. I don't know if it was last year or the year before, but I love this neutral palette. It's just such a great neutral palette at that. So a lot of these shades are just shades for a very easy wearable eye look. If I had to pick one shade out of this palette though, it would be, oh, there are the names on that. This shade Open Mind here, this kind of lighter brown shade. Like many of the other ones that I've said were my favorite, this is just a very unique brown shade. It's perfect for either like warm toned or cool toned looks. This does actually look a lot like the Raw Sienna shade in the Modern Renaissance palette, but this is the color here. It might be a little bit deeper than that, but this is the color here. Like the other ones, this looks so pretty as just a shade to wear on its own, or it's great as a transition shade for deeper brown eye looks, or in the outer corner for lighter brown eye looks. But I absolutely love this one. Definitely my favorite out of the 9-pan Morphe 9T palette. And this one was the shade Open Mind. Alright, next we're going to talk about another throwback palette. So this is the Smashbox Full Exposure palette. I can't even tell you the last time I used this palette. I honestly thought I gifted it to my mom or something. So this is what this palette looks like. Like many of my other palettes, it's just a great neutral palette. Now, when I look at this palette, I definitely see a different... Are there names for these? No, it just says like shimmer one or like matte one on the back here. But I know which one was my favorite back in the day when I was using this palette a whole bunch. Now I'm not so sure if I would pick that one out as my favorite, but I will still go with it just because I haven't used this in a while and I know that this one was my absolute favorite. So this shade here, this kind of like slate gray shimmer, was definitely by far my most used out of the whole palette, but my favorite shade whenever I was using this palette a whole bunch. It's just such a pretty like grayish shimmer. I was really into the kind of more cool toned eye looks and gray shimmers whenever I first started getting into makeup, but this is what this shadow looks like there, swatched on my finger, and I'll put it on the back of my hand too. It's not as dark as you think it would be looking at it in the palette, so this is what it looks like. It just looks so pretty with more black, gray, smoky eyes, so that is why I really enjoyed it. But it is such a pretty shade, and it does have a lot of reflect for being an older palette, so I really enjoyed this one, and it was definitely my favorite shade when I was using it a whole bunch. Alright, next up we're going to talk about another Nastasia palette. This is the Sultry palette. I adore this palette. I'm so sad that you can't purchase it anymore because it was limited edition, but this palette is so pretty. It has so many great shimmers in here. The mattes are okay, they're not my favorites. There's definitely a lot more impactful shimmers in here than mattes, but I love a lot of these shimmer shades. I have to say though, I think my most used and one that I'm really drawn to out of this palette is this shade here in the corner, this Cinder shade. It's kind of the perfect match between like a tan and a brown shimmer. It's just really gorgeous. You'll see whenever I swatch it. These shimmers are really buttery soft too, like all of the other Nastasia shimmers are. But this is what it looks like here, and this is it swatched on my hand. Like, come on, that is so gorgeous. That is definitely my favorite shade out of the palette. Steampunk is a close second to this gold shimmer here, just because it's such a unique color and it is so buttery soft. But I think the one that I use the most out of this palette is definitely this Cinder shade, because it's just so pretty and looks so great with so many eye looks. Alright, so we have 5 left. Let's go ahead and do a Too Faced palette. So this is the Too Faced Chocolate Bonbons palette, and this is one that I do really enjoy too. It's great for those eye looks that you don't want it to be too much, but you still want it to look like you're wearing something on your eyes and did something. And this one smells amazing too, like all of the other chocolate bar palettes from Too Faced. Sorry, it's very reflective, my mirror down there. But when I open this palette, I see a lot of shades that they look the same, but they look different on your eyes. However, my eyes are immediately drawn to this mocha shade right here. It's like kind of a purpley brown shade. It's just so pretty. I love just pairing this with a shimmer on my lid while wearing this in the crease, and then putting a shimmer on my lid. It's such a pretty combo. So this is the matte shade there, and then swatched on the back of my hand. See how it kind of has like almost like a purpley hue to it? I just think it looks so pretty. And this mocha shade is definitely my favorite out of the Too Faced Chocolate Bonbon palette. Alright, next up, let's do another Colourpop palette. This one is so dirty, sorry you have to see this. But this is the Dream Street palette from Kathleen Lights and Colourpop. I absolutely love this palette. It is so gorgeous. I love a lot of the shades in here. The blues are really pretty, however I don't use them all that often because, like I said before, I'm not the biggest colored eyeshadow fan on a daily basis. However, these ones are super pretty. My favorite shade in this palette though has to be this Shooting Star shade here. It is just the most gorgeous kind of mauve-y pink shade. This one looks absolutely incredible as an all-over lid shade. It's just gorgeous. Like, it is one of my favorite shades to ever exist. It's just so pretty. Let me swatch it here for you guys. I love that it is still pink, but also kind of has like a hint of brown too, so it makes it a little bit easier to wear and a little bit more neutral. But I'm telling you, this shade all over the lid is absolutely incredible. I don't think you're able to buy this palette on Colourpop's website anymore. I think it was discontinued, but if you are able to get your hands on one of these, I think you would really enjoy this Shooting Star shade because it's just so pretty and it works great paired with other eyeshadows, but like I've said a million times, it's really great on its own too. Alright, the last Nastasia palette that I have is the Subculture palette. Now, a lot of these shades are kind of tricky to work with just because they're such unique colors and they don't really pair too well together. You kind of have to dip into a lot of other eyeshadow palettes to make a lot of these shades work if you want a more complex eye look. But whenever I open this up, you're gonna be a little disappointed in me because I'm gonna pick the most basic shade in this palette, but my eyes are immediately drawn to this brown shimmer shade, Adorn, right here. It is a gorgeous, deep, chocolatey brown shimmer. I absolutely love it. It is a little bit chunkier and you will get major fallout with this on your eye, but the final result will be totally worth it. Like, look how pretty that brown is. This is a great shimmer shade for your lid if you're doing like a deeper brown eye look. It's just so reflective and so pretty. It's one of my favorite brown shimmers to ever exist. I just think it is so gorgeous and the formula is so soft. Like I said, there is a lot of fallout with it, but I just think it's so worth it because this shade is absolutely gorgeous. All right, two left. The first being this Huda Beauty Emerald Obsessions palette. I really enjoy this. I don't wear green eyeshadows all that often, but when I do, I always reach for the Huda Beauty palette. I think this is such a unique palette and the colors in here are so pretty. However, the one shade that I absolutely adore out of this palette is this one here in the corner. I don't know what the name of this is, if it even has one. I don't think there are names for it. They might have been on like one of those cards in here, but I threw that out because it just gets too annoying. But this shade here is my absolute favorite. I love using this as a topper shade whenever I use the rest of the palette. It looks great just tapped onto the lid for a little bit more of a sparkle. I actually wore this on my lids this Christmas, I think, as like a greenish topper shade for my eye look, and I got so many compliments. It just looked so pretty. It was so reflective. It is one of my favorite green eyeshadows, and I think it is very, very wearable too for being a green eyeshadow. This is what it looks like here, and when you swatch it, it is a little bit sparse, which is why I think it works better. It's just like a topper tapped on the top of your lid, but it is really pretty too. If you just want like a subtle green shimmer, this is definitely the one to reach for. It's so pretty and it's definitely my favorite shade out of the Huda Beauty Emerald Obsessions palette. Alright, and lastly, we're going to end with the palette that is probably the most difficult for me to pick my favorite shade out of. That is because it is my Makeup Geek palette. This one I actually customized, so I picked all of the shades in this palette. I actually did two videos, one creating this palette with you guys and one using my customized palette for the first time. So if you want to see that process, definitely check out my playlist. I will have it linked up above and down below if you want to see it. But this palette is probably my favorite out of my eyeshadow palette collection just because I love all of the shades in here, as I should, because I picked them all out myself. But if I had to choose one shade out of this palette that is my absolute favorite, oh gosh, this is so hard because there are so many that I like. I think it would have to be this Morocco shade though. It is this really pretty like orangey shade here. This looks absolutely gorgeous paired with brown eye looks. It looks gorgeous in the crease and outer corner paired with a little bit of this starry-eyed shade here on the lid. Let me swatch it for you guys because it's just the most gorgeous shade. I cannot wait to wear this in the fall time because it is like the perfect fall color in my opinion. So this is what it looks like. It's just so impactful and it's definitely a very, very wearable kind of rusty orange shade. So it is my favorite probably out of my customized Makeup Geek palette. Although I love all of the shades in that palette, I think I would have to go with this one as my number one. Wow, that video was so much fun. I had so much fun going through all of my palettes and kind of narrowing it down to the one shade that I love the best out of all of them. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video and I hope you had fun as well. If you want to see more kind of categorical favorites like this, definitely give this video a thumbs up and let me know down below in the comments what you would want to see me do next. I know it's kind of hard, maybe like with my quads or something or smaller eyeshadow palettes I can do it again. I don't know. If you have any ideas, definitely let me know down below. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for sticking around to the end of it with me. Like I said before, I would love it if you would subscribe to my channel. I upload videos twice a week, Tuesdays and Sundays, so I'd love to have you back here and I can't wait to see you in my next one. Bye.